Hello everyone, welcome to my presentation of James Marcia's identity statuses. Well, a better place to start than by introducing the man who theorized and developed these statuses, James Marcia. Dr. Marcia is a contemporary clinical and developmental psychologist at Simon Fraser University in British Columbia, Canada. His career in psychology began at Ohio State University, and he began to develop his theory while participating in a clinical internship at Massachusetts Mental Health Center. There he actually had an interesting experience nearly misdiagnosing a client with schizophrenia when the client was actually released from the facility just a few months later. They had determined that he was really just experiencing the confusion of exploring his own identity. And so this situation really sparked an interest in the complexity of identity development in Dr. Marcia, and turned him on to the work of Erik Erikson. Erik Erikson had theorized a very foundational psychosocial stage theory, and by focusing on Erikson's concept of ego identity within that theory, Marcia went on to expand on the theory through his work completing his doctoral dissertation. So before we get further into Marcia's own statuses, let's take a little bit closer look at the foundation in Erik Erikson's theory. In Erikson's theory, he theorized that development is based on both the influence of one's external environment and their own internal dynamics. So development is grounded in Erikson's epigenetic principle, which Erikson describes as follows. Anything that grows has a ground plan, and out of this ground plan the parts arise, each part having its time of special ascendancy, until all parts have arisen to form a functioning whole. Erikson's theory describes one's life development in 8 stages, where each stage presents a crisis that must be resolved to further develop one's ego identity, which you can see is the conscious sense of self that develops through social interaction. The first 4 stages form a basis of one's identity, and the last 5 stages foster that identity. The 5th stage marks the first time one's physical, cognitive, and socio-emotional development has advanced enough for them to sort through the possible identities and construct a viable path forward. The result is identity formation, which is the process of defining oneself by ideological stance and vocational direction, and also marks the transition from childhood to adulthood, where one transitions from being given to becoming the giver. This is where James Marcia's theory elaborates on the identity formation process. In the 1960s, James Marcia constructed 2 instruments with which to measure identity: the Ego Identity Incomplete Sentences Blank and Scoring Manual, and Identity Status Interview. For the very first time, he provided a reliable method for evaluating an individual's identity development. Dr. Marcia went on to expand upon Erikson's theory, incorporating 4 validated identity statuses: identity diffusion, moratorium, foreclosure, and achievement. So based on Erikson's ideas, crisis and commitment, which can now be measured, were used to classify the progression of identity formation into Marcia's 4 statuses. Crisis is synonymous with exploration, where an individual thinks through and tries out various alternative ideological and occupational roles in life plans, whereas commitment is marked by ownership or personal investment in life choices, values, and goals. The combination of one's measured experience with exploration and extent of commitment in the general areas of ideology and occupation is what classifies them into Marcia's 4 distinct identity statuses. You can see these statuses here listed from left to right, from generally immature and unhealthy on the left to mature and advanced on the right. Now let's take a look at individuals within the 4 identity statuses, each grouping a little bit closer. So the least advanced status would be that of identity diffusion, also known as identity confusion. Those classified in this status have not experienced crisis or exploration, nor have they made any commitments. They are identified as having a lack of concern regarding commitments or matters of occupation or ideology, and generally have a low sense of self-regard. As they struggle to respect themselves, they struggle to connect with others. They're often apathetic about their external environment and internal dynamics, and tend to conform and submit to what is expected of them. This can also make them easily manipulated. So these are students that we really want to watch out for in the college environment. Most likely they have not, decided on their own to pursue a college education, but maybe just be following the path that was laid before them, or what was expected of them. And so these students can really get lost, and it would make a big difference to be able to connect with a student in this type of phase and help encourage them to experience new things, explore just the world around them, and so that way they can move closer to making a secure commitment to an identity, which we will talk about can be very beneficial for one's learning experience. The next status is identity foreclosure. Those in this status are committed but have not experienced identity crisis or exploration. This is a common status for those who are younger in the developmental process. They're functioning without purpose as they haven't explored alternative ideologies or occupations. These individuals show unquestioning allegiance to authority and the same unquestioning submission to rules. Their limited exposure to alternative worldviews also results in inflexible thinking. They maintain conventional relationships without stepping outside their zone of comfort and what is familiar to them. This is a very common status, especially for students who are just arriving on the college campus or in the online classrooms. Really going to be difficult for them to participate in discussions that challenge their already accepted beliefs. And this is something that can be expected, but we can watch for students to progress through this stage as they do realize the many worldviews and perspectives around them, and that typically happens on the college scene. The third status is moratorium. And this is a status for those who are experiencing crisis but have not made an identity commitment. They are questioning the values they've likely blindly accepted in the past and are in an overall unstable state. Marcia explains individuals in this status either as sensitive or anxiety-ridden, highly ethical or self-righteous, but also flexible and indecisive. This is a time when individuals bounce between characteristics such as accepting, conforming, and obeying, and then other characteristics that are questioning, such as rejecting, rebelling, questioning, or even healthy characteristics, creating, trying out new ideas, values, rules, or overall identities. And it's a status that's easy to spot and where much progress is made quickly, so something you're probably going to see in the college environment. Our final status, identity achievement, is the most advanced status. It's where where individuals have experienced crisis, meaning that they have adequately explored alternative identities, and they've also made a confident and strong commitment to their very own ideological stance and occupational direction. However, this doesn't mean that they're finished developing their identity. With the foundation of their identity secure, these individuals are actually more free to experience the identity crisis exploration. They can investigate alternative worldviews, perspectives, and opinions, and make a confident decision based on their own internal processing rather than just being influenced by their external environment. So it is a really healthy place to be. Finally here, just want to make a few notes about Marcia's statuses. Please note that he didn't intend for there to be any specific or ideal progression through statuses. In fact, some students may never experience one or more of the statuses in their time in college or really in their lifetime. With that, it's also possible to cycle through some of these statuses. So no status once reached is ever going to be permanent. Even the identity achievement status, any life event can shift an individual's status at any point in their lives. We want to be careful not to assume or to quickly identify students as being in one of these statuses. A student that comes and is a non-traditional student with much more life experience may not be in the identity achievement status. And so we want to just be aware that students can be anywhere along the identity development domain, and just look out for that. Here I did want to also leave you with some more direct points as the statuses reflect to student development. Marcia's 4 identity statuses aid the student development professional in reflecting upon the overall developmental process of students. So these statuses really do, of course, fit in with Erikson's thoughts on identity development, and also go hand in hand with a lot of other developmental models as well. So we want to consider all of those. He did theorize that identity is the central reference point from which humans respond to life's complexities, and identity achievement requires progression upon one's physical, cognitive, and socio-emotional development. Yet these areas are oftentimes underdeveloped when a traditional student arrives on campus. So as we do see that some statuses are less developed than others, we want to recognize that each has their place in the student's overall development. And that gets to my next point. Our role is really just to be patient with students and safely guide them through the identity exploration process, helping them just get closer to making that identity commitment, whatever that is going to be. Overall, we have the privilege of witnessing students develop in their ability to stand their ground in the midst of confronting life's complexities, develop their own thoughts and ways of processing information, and then finally acting upon the commitments that they do eventually make. We can remember that as students grow, so does their ability to handle various identity domains that we witness, such as relationships, faith, careers, politics, and so forth. And students really learn to truly engage in the student learning environment as their development process takes place. I wanted to leave you with this quote from Dr. James Marcia himself. I think it is just inspiring and kind of sums up his theory of identity statuses quite well. Once formed, an identity furnishes individuals with a historical sense of who they have been, a meaningful sense of who they are now, and a sense of who they might become in the future. I just think that's really well put and a good place to wrap up the presentation of James Marcia's identity statuses. I'm going to leave you here with my resources, and just thank you for your attention, and I hope that you've learned something more about the identity development process from James Marcia's identity statuses. Thank you very much.